Okay, hi! I'm Cherry and you've stumbled upon my channel, and today I'm going to be giving you nonfiction eating disorder book recommendations. It's officially NEDA Week, or National Eating Disorders Awareness Week. Actually, there's like 3 eating disorder awareness weeks in a span of like 1.5 months. And as a regular person, I am very confused, but as an advocate, I am absolutely pleased. Today, I'll be giving nonfiction eating disorder book recommendations, and my next video will focus on fiction recommendations. Of course, I'll be continuing to read more books about EDs, or eating disorders, because the subject is genuinely very close to my heart. And hopefully next year, I'll have more, maybe even better recommendations to give. A little background before I start. I have suffered from anorexia nervosa for more than a decade. But I've already had like a terrible history with food growing up. The disorder began when I was around 14 years old, but I was officially diagnosed when I was 18. I've been in recovery for around 3 years, but I won't deny that the self-destructive thoughts can be loud sometimes, but I've been doing better at ignoring them. There are plenty of bad days, and I've relapsed more times than I can count through the years. But I am very determined to make a full recovery. Okay, now that that's out in the open, let's get on to some of my favorite non-fiction books about eating disorders. The first book I have is Elena Vanishing by Elena Dunkel, co-written with her mother, award-winning science fiction and fantasy author Claire B. Dunkel. In this memoir, we follow Elena's perspective during the 5-year period her eating disorder was at its peak. Not only do you read about Elena's experience, but you also get insights from her mother, who she was really close to and was with her during the darkest times of her life. Claire, her mom, went to therapy with her, argued with so many psychiatrists, and you can definitely tell she really wanted the best for her daughter, who was slowly wasting away. Hence, why I feel like this memoir specifically is a great read for anyone who knows someone suffering from an eating disorder, especially parents with children suffering from EDs. Skimming through the memoir again for this video, I almost forgot how this was written so beautifully, with so many impactful lines. As you can see, I've tabbed a bit or a ton during my first read. Some of them quotes or parts I found very relatable. Anyway, here. Honestly, let me just read you a few of my favorite lines. This memoir starts out very strong. Like on page 3 it says, "Perfection. That's what I want people to see when they look at me. Nothing but perfection. Anger is honest. Hatred is a backhanded compliment. Envy is the best gift of all. But let them turn you into a victim and you're labeled for life. Pity is the sea you drown in." Like, honestly, isn't that so good? I knew I was going to love this book the moment I read that line. And here's another favorite that it's just a one-liner, but it's so good. "Every bite of food that I choose not to eat feels like its own personal victory." And this final line from Elena Vanishing is something that I carry with me day to day. It says, "Recovery is a path, not a destination." Honestly, that is so true, especially with how many times I relapse over the years. But I want to believe that recovery is not linear and that eventually I will be fine. Elena Vanishing is definitely a memoir that is a must-read for parents, teachers, and friends. Next book is by far my all-time favorite eating disorder memoir, or actually memoir in general, honestly, and that is Wasted, a memoir of anorexia and bulimia by Maria Hornbacher. Maria Hornbacher is such a fantastic writer. It's not enough that she writes beautifully, but she does it in a way that does not glamorize her disorders in the very slightest. Despite all the stunning lines, however, Hornbacher does not hold back in sharing the ugly and disgusting truths about EDs. She can get very graphic and personal sometimes, but I feel like every part of this memoir was necessary. She delivered tons of insights, shared life lessons without being totally preachy or self-helpy. That's probably one of the things I really dislike in like the recovery portions of memoirs, and why I adore this book so much. It made me realize so many things about myself, but without the unsolicited advice you get from self-help books disguised as memoirs. Also, I learned a ton more than I already know about eating disorders and other patients because Maria Hornbacher did so much research about eating disorders and other related conditions while writing this book, and referenced so many medical and scientific articles in the footnotes. Let me read you some of my favorite lines to maybe encourage you to pick it up as well. This one actually also started out really strong. In page 7, it says, "For the vast majority of eating disordered people, it is something that will haunt you for the rest of your life. You may change your behavior, change your beliefs about yourself and your body, give up that particular way of coping in the world. You may learn, as I have, that you would rather be a human than a human's thin shell. You may get well, but you never forget." I fucking love this book. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna read you like a final line before we move on. The convenience in having an eating disorder is that you believe, by definition, that your eating disorder cannot get out of control. Because it is control. It is, you believe, your only means of control. So how could it possibly control you? Yes. Yes, everything in this freaking book, I swear. Maria Hornbacher just hits it on the fucking nail in the head. Specifically the nail on my head, because I absolutely love this book. It is so stunningly written and just delivers a lot of these really memorable moments and lines. And I urge people who want to learn more about eating disorders to read it, because there is a lot of references in the footnotes. Like, she referenced, I tabbed this one specifically because I plan on checking out the reference. It's Charlene Hesse-Bieber, Am I Thin Enough Yet? The Cult of Thinness and the Commercialization of Identity. I plan on checking that out, that's why I tabbed it. But she has a lot more on the footnotes at the bottom of each page. The next book is a special mention because it is actually one of the very few memoirs written by a POC, and that is Anna, A Memoir of Anorexia Nervosa by Cyan Centeno. Because let's be real, eating disorders have always been considered a white girl condition more than anything. Even though the author is Latinx and I'm Asian, just reading about another POC who also suffered from an eating disorder was honestly a relief. I'm pretty sure the author is also around my age, or at least is a millennial, so we shared a ton of similar experiences as a young adult with an eating disorder. It made me feel seen and like I wasn't totally alone. From naming her disorder Anna, to having an ED journal, to listening to songs about EDs, to reading memoirs to feel less alone, to being part of an online community, to having starving buddies. There were just so much of her experience that I could relate to personally. It's definitely worth a read if you're a POC and or a millennial suffering or have suffered from an ED. One of the most relatable and more modern memoirs about anorexia nervosa I've read so far. By the way, this book has additional trigger warnings for depression and self-harm. And additional note that this book is available on Kindle Unlimited, and that is where I read it. Now a quote from the memoir that struck me the most, because it really was true for like the longest time. If I were to die from anorexia, that was okay by me, because at least I died trying, and that satisfied my disorder. Speaking of self-help books, this last book combines that concept with a memoir, and that is Emancipated Love Junkie, Liberating Myself from Anorexia by Rachel Wilshusen. This is definitely the lightest memoir I have on this list in terms of writing style, tone, and overall mood. So if you're someone who would rather read something uplifting, inspiring, and just delivers positive vibes, then this memoir is definitely one that you should pick up. Despite the seriousness of the topic, this memoir delivers some pretty hilarious punchlines One of my favorites include, disordered eating is a common behavioral issue, as omnipresent as avocado slices on a hipster street taco menu. It's like, bitch. I love that analogy. It was so funny. I think I had to put the book down because I couldn't stop snickering. Eating disorders also typically start out young, and most memoirs usually tell the story of the sufferer from when they were teenagers. But this one, I think she was a little older, in her early to mid 20s when her disorder began, and it followed her until in her early to mid 30s, and that was something that was refreshing because we don't talk enough about older people who get eating disorders. Some of them even start at 50. Rachel Washusen inserts these self-love gems in between her stories. They're not super preachy, that's why I really appreciate them. They're more teachings, realizations she had that she wanted to share with us. Emancipated Love Junkie is also available on Kindle Unlimited. That's actually how I discovered the book. I found something very essential in this relatively short memoir, and I sometimes look back on the self-love gems during some of my bad days. For example, of a beloved self-love gem, which serves as a daily reminder. Food is not your enemy. Rather, it is something to appreciate and savor without fear, guilt, or restrictions. Whether you view cupcakes or fries as your mortal enemy, or find it challenging to bite into anything today, know that you deserve to eat, and to eat well. I think that was so cute. I think that's just really cute. And finally, to end this video, I'm leaving you with an uplifting quote from this book. It says, "Eventually, your weight will become a number rather than how you define yourself." So, my memory card got full just as I was about to make an outro. And I was like, should I still make an outro? Would not making an outro make me into a piece of shit? And then I realized, outro or not, I am a piece of shit. Anyway, that is all I have for you today. I hope you do pick up some of these books because they are really educational, if not super relatable. And tune in next week for some fictional recommendations about eating disorders. And I hope you got something out of this video. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you in my next one. Goodbye! Is Elena... Oh my god, the light. Oh my god, the lighting changed. I'm so freaking... Oopsies.